Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining this live ServiceNow live event for Samsung SDS Zero Touch Mobility. If you're on this call, you recognize that fragmented tools and manual processes can't always scale to the growth required by a remote and hybrid world in mobility management. And proper mobility management across the enterprise is more important than ever before. Today's exciting call, we'll be speaking about Samsung SDS Zero Touch Mobility, which powers zero touch enterprise mobility through hyperautomation and brings visibility to the entire mobile device lifecycle from procurement to disposal. This will be an exciting discussion with folks from both the ServiceNow and Samsung SDS side on how this mobile device management solution provides insights, unlocks efficiency, and empowers your team for greater productivity and return on investment. Want to flash this here as well. Want to make it clear that this presentation may contain forward-looking statements, so please review the safe harbor notice and heed it as well. This live event is part of a series of live events, and we encourage you to join us at future webinars and 360 exchanges. You can see the QR code here as well and scan that. Sign up for as many as you'd like. We're always happy to see familiar faces, and these will be posted on our community page as well as recordings for you to watch at any time. And we are just around the corner from Knowledge 2024. When keeping items on today's call, we will have time for Q&A. So please actively use the Q&A button at the bottom. Try and keep all of your Q&A specific questions there to make it easier for us to answer them at the end. But feel free to use the chat as well for anything else that strikes you throughout the presentation. Like I said, this will be recorded and shared on our community. And after the event, you'll be prompted for a quick survey. Please give us some feedback. It always helps us make these better and bigger. As I said, the live events are part of our commitment to help our customers deploy and achieve value across the BU. Particularly today, we want to do a better understanding of how ServiceNow, HAM, and Samsung SDS are working together, and you can get some firsthand input from the team on the call today. So without further ado, I'm Michael Scognamilio. I'm the Senior Outbound Product Manager for IT Asset Management, and my focus is on hardware asset management, where I spend my time speaking with customers using the product and documenting their outcomes in their first couple months or years, and then put that feedback back into the product. I'm really excited to introduce today our panelists, Eric Farrington and David Kinlow. Eric, why don't you give a quick introduction for yourself before passing it over to David?
Yeah, hi, thanks, Michael. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. My name is Eric Farrington. I am Senior Director of Product for Asset Management here at ServiceNow. I own our products that revolve around physical assets and goods. So our hardware asset management focused on technology, and also our enterprise asset focused on those enterprise goods as well.
Awesome, Eric. And David, tell us a little bit more about yourself.
And hi, I'm Dave Kinlow. I head up the Solution Business Division sales side. So I head up most B2B sales teams for Samsung SDS in the Americas. Our focus is on ServiceNow, Zero Touch Mobility, along with standard enterprise mobility hardware, software, and services focused in general enterprise health care and Fed SLED.
Fantastic. It is an absolute treat to have you both on the call today discussing this new solution. And so thank you for taking the time. All right. Today, not too much complexity to today's session because we got a lot to talk about and we have the right people to do it. We're going to start talking about hardware asset management. This is a ServiceNow product, and Eric Farrington will be walking you through some of that. Then we'll pivot to the Samsung SDS solution, and of course, we'll leave time for Q&A at the end. So make sure you keep those questions coming, and we'll be tracking them throughout. All right, so I'm going to pass it over to Eric to help us set the stage here. I want to discuss what is ServiceNow hardware asset management and what's so unique about the Now platform.
Yeah, thanks, Michael. All right, so when we begin to talk about hardware asset management and what we want to be able to solve forward with for our customers in terms of a practice and what we do with our products, partnerships, and solutions, we really want to be able to embrace our end-to-end asset life cycle that we're dealing with. We put a focus scope on being able to maintain visibility, accuracy, and auditability of our asset records from the time that we plan to acquire them until the end of life. And we want to help customers answer those simple questions that they're struggling with day to day. What do I own? Where is this object within my business? What's it doing? What's it performing? Is it performing end user functions? Is it helping finance run some of their systems? How is it helping and what's it connected to within my business? And ultimately, what stage of its life cycle is it at? Is it early in where we're managing offline assets that are in inventory, where we're focused on those that are deployed and how they're performing in the active environment? Or are we planning for that end of life cycle, or maybe even refreshing those assets to make sure that number one, we're maximizing the investment that our business has made in those assets with maximized usage, but we also have clarity and understanding that it's performing as expected and it's still within our business. Next slide, please. So the way we do this is ServiceNow operates as a singular platform, meaning we have a single data model, a single architecture that runs across all of our product areas. And we want to make sure that when we're defining our asset records, our object records, and the models that they roll up to, that we're standardizing that across our platform. That means that there's not multiple areas to store assets within the solution. And by doing so, it allows us to concentrate and become very, very prescriptive and proactive to help customers on their asset management journeys to be able to then drive prescriptive workflows around common activities. How do I request, source, and obtain new assets? How do I replenish my inventory stock? How do I manage temporary use or loaner assets? How do I deploy those assets, service them, and then recoup or reclaim them? And then by doing those standardized activities, we have a clean and accurate CMDB or asset management database. And it also allows us to start extrapolating new values and optimizations back to our business, whether it's, are we fulfilling more orders from our existing stock and we're maximizing what we have on the shelf? Or are we doing proactive comparisons around, maybe I have two types of network routers that are performing similar activity. Can I look at the total cost of operating those two objects and then be able to align and select one that maybe isn't operating at a higher margin for constant repair, that I can really optimize my business on what technology is bringing benefit to my users and to my systems. Next slide, please. So we really want to be able to put the focus on for our customers of leveraging that single platform. We want to be prescriptive, but we know that organizations may have conditional needs, so we still allow the opportunity to configure through a low-code framework. We allow the flexibility for our partnerships and our integrations to be able to continue to enrich that view. But ultimately, we're going back to that mission statement of, do we know what we have? Do we know what we're doing? And also, can we prove it? And by doing that and having that clarity of accuracy of our data, it allows us to drive into several activities, whether it's optimizing our business operations, reducing cost, reducing risk, or just making sure that we're delivering a positive customer experience when we're dealing on, say, our end user devices or critical business systems that we depend on to run our business and that run on those technology assets. Next slide, please. So it's that where I really want to be able to hand over to Dave here, and this is a great opportunity that we had to partner with Samsung SDS in really creating this mature total asset solution to help customers maximize the value out of their mobility. And this was a critical partnership that we at ServiceNow looked at and said, this is not a journey that we want to be able to drive to our customers alone. We need expertise, we need mindshare, we need the power of a leader in this industry with Samsung to be able to align to our platform to help drive these solutions forward. So Dave, I'm going to pass off to you, and I'd love for us to dive into a little bit of this zero touch mobility journey.
Thanks, Eric. I really appreciate it. You've been a fantastic partner in this journey of bringing enterprise mobility lifecycle management to the ServiceNow platform and a much higher level than ever before. So we really appreciate this partnership. To that point, we appreciate the awards this year. The Samsung Zero Touch Mobility product one built on ServiceNow Solution of the Year for 2024. And we've also won for the Americas Transformation Partner of the Year. So thank you again for your partnership. Next slide, please. So what we were trying to address with zero touch mobility is the fragmentation and complexity of enterprise mobility management. It's almost like digital transformation forgot about mobile. And most companies are still treating mobile devices like they're BlackBerries in 2005. In fact, I would say that the infrastructure that's managing your current devices is almost identical to what was managing BlackBerries in the early, zeros. As opposed to a BlackBerry Enterprise server, you've got an EMM, but it's probably the same group that's running it. You've got your standard support help desk that has probably been the same for the past number of years. And then you've got telecom, which is normally handled either by an internal telecom group that's been doing it forever or an external vendor like a telecom expense management provider. None of that has changed or innovated in 20 years. So that has led to a very large issue in digital transformation, which is that mobile devices are treated like phones that do email. They're kind of an afterthought. And we're really not taking advantage of the fact that they're not phones that do email anymore. They're supercomputers in your pocket where the phone part is just another application. And we believe the reason for that is because of this legacy infrastructure that's supporting these sorts of devices, the support burden is extremely high. Because there's so many siloed systems that are involved in the enterprise mobility ecosystem that the amount of swivel chairing and the amount of manual effort that's required in order to handle end-to-end lifecycle management, it makes it so that people are still running around with their hair on fire just trying to keep email working. So anything above that is going to be a bit of a challenge. So we've got really complicated support. And one of the reasons for that is it's one of the only asset classes in the world where we have decoupled the tools that can fix an issue from the people that are trying to fix it. And by that, I mean, level one help desk almost never has access to tools like the enterprise mobility management platforms that handle security and policy enforcement on the devices, nor do they ever have access to the telecom systems. Normally, what would happen is if you call up with a lost or stolen or broken or really any issue with your mobile device, if it's not something that simply like turn it off and turn it back on again, it's a ticket that goes to somebody that has to then swivel chair it into a different system. So the odds of having first call resolution on mobile currently are very low. I would also say that for whatever reason, mobile is considered this outlier. So it's managed outside of ServiceNow. It's one of the only assets that you've got a huge amount of that's strategic, but it's being managed in an external system. It's in a telecom expense management system or an MSP's control. It's not inside of your CMDB. In fact, I'd say like 75% of ServiceNow customers don't have a single mobile device in their CMDB or inside of HAM. So we would like to change that because really that's counter to ServiceNow customer strategies. And it really leads to not effective inventory handling and just really lack of visibility and not being able to take advantage of the Now platform's flexibility and capability. Next slide, please. Because ultimately, these mobile devices really should be the culmination of all the technology that's available now. Like I said, they're not phones that do email. These are supercomputers in your pocket, and Samsung's new devices even have AI on board, and they're connected to 5G high-speed networks. They've got the ability to have augmented reality and virtual reality. There are sensors that they can hook up to get feeds for other telemetry information, and there's really good security. All of that should lead to the fact that these devices are supposed to be a window to the cloud, and yet they really aren't. More than likely on your phone right now, you've got PIM, so email, calendar, contacts, and probably a couple of SaaS solutions. but you really don't have cloud access. You don't have access to real company data or all company data to allow you to do your job at the highest level. And that's because of security and support issues. But really, what we want to do is make this that window to the cloud where you've got access to all the information you possibly can, and that you can really be a mobile first company, because that's where things are going. Gen Zs are coming into the marketplace now, and they have gone their entire educational careers utilizing mobile devices and applications that are tuned to a mobile interface. So simple, easy to use. And this is where you've got to be prepared to go. So next slide, please. And we've had customers actually do this. If you look at Samsung's customer Walmart, where they gave away uh, over 1 million devices to store associates in the United States. This was for a couple of different reasons. One of them was devices of benefit, because retail employees, getting a nice phone to be able to use outside of work for their own personal needs it's a nice perk. But on top of that, it allowed them to really expand what they were doing from a digital perspective in the store. Before there was 10 maybe barcode scanning computers in the store, so 10 of their employees could be out there picking and doing inventory. Now that every user has a device in their hands, when they're in the store, everybody can be a picker, everybody can be doing inventory, everybody can be doing so much more because they've got access to technology. But it didn't come without its issues. The deployment was very complicated. The support is very complicated. You can imagine 1 million devices, even if you've got a 5% break rate, that's a lot of devices a year. So having some sort of automation and some sort of centralized control of that lifecycle management is absolutely key to success. But they're starting to see great success and benefits from going mobile first. It's just the infrastructure needs to be there to support it. Next slide, please. I mentioned Gen Zs coming into the workforce. Thales, who's a large French-based defense contractor, but they're global, was starting to see that new employees coming in were actually having lower productivity than legacy employees. And normally it's the other way around. Young people come into the organization, they haven't been beaten down by the man yet, so they're much more, productive. But they were seeing that wasn't the case, so they did some research and they figured out that the younger people that were coming into their organization, they had never used or very seldomly used Windows or Mac OS. They hadn't used a full computer operating system. They had gone their entire formative, educational career utilizing smartphones and tablets and applications that were designed for that sort of environment or that sort of interface. So they were simple, easy to use. And when they were coming into the workforce, where they were given, a big notebook computer and told to log into multiple systems that had complicated legacy interfaces, told to go and find a printer or figure out what a scanner is, they started to go to retreat a little bit. In fact, HP's got this term that they coined called what is it? Technology discrimination. So you've got younger people coming into the workforce who have never used a big copier, or they've never used a printer that's an industrial old legacy printer. And they're finding it very daunting to deal with these legacy products because they're not this simple to use, optimized interface. So Thales was forced to go mobile first in order to allow their new employees to have access to the tools that they knew how to use to be productive. And you can imagine that's a huge shift. So how you get there, how you manage this thing that it went from a mobile device, which is an afterthought, it's kind of like a BlackBerry but an overgrown one, to, oh my God, this is our mission critical endpoint. And they have to do that very quickly. So being able to shift into that centralized, automated, highly efficient support model and inventory model was key. And that, again, wasn't an easy transition. Next slide, please. Because really where we're going is not only mobile first, but mobile in a way that we've never seen before. If you look at, manufacturers like Boeing or Ford or GM or any of these companies, they're starting to go to what we call the augmented worker, where it's not just one mobile device, it's multiple mobile devices, or it's a mobile device and accessories like augmented reality headsets and wearable devices to allow them to really, streamline efficiency in production. For example, one of the plane manufacturers is using Samsung wearables devices and augmented reality. So when they're assembling the landing gear, for large commercial airliners, they're using the watch and augmented reality to figure out exactly when the right amount of tension is put onto one of the nuts that's there, so that they can assure that the installation's been done successfully. It's taken the installation of that part of the plane from days to one day. So really, there's a huge savings. But you can imagine that supporting multiple accessories, is something that you really have to plan and do properly. And ServiceNow is that central control tower that can really streamline that sort of support and lifecycle management. So next slide. So what we did was we mapped the entire life cycle of a mobile device, from cradle to grave. So from the ordering of the device through the enrolling of it into the management platform and the enrollment platform, deploying it to the end user, and then dealing with the life cycle of that device. So, the inevitabilities of lost and broken and stolen devices, the, warranty, extended warranty, Care Plus, Apple Care kind of policy claims, and then things like spare pool management, advanced exchange, all the way to the device's reclamation. So bringing that device back for whatever reason, somebody's leaving the company, I need to get their device back, I need to wipe it. I then need to either send it for recycle or buyback, or refurbishment and reuse. So all of these tasks that you see here, you can see that they affect different parts of the organization. So they are very, very siloed. So you've got IT, operations, HR, security, finance, and procurement. And all of these people have to be involved in order for this to actually happen. So you can imagine that streamlining this sort of workflow is very difficult because there's multiple different systems involved, multiple different players. And all of these tasks that you see here, these aren't all of the tasks. These were just the ones that we could identify that require at least 4 swivel chairs currently. So you can imagine trying to do that in the context of a more multinational, larger enterprise becomes extremely difficult. Next slide, please. And to kind of nail that home, this is, again, not the entire enterprise mobility ecosystem. This is what I could fit on a slide. And it's very busy, but you can see that there's, hundreds of OEMs that are making mobile hardware, and there's multiple form factors, and there's multiple OSs. To say that Android is one OS is actually kind of a fallacy, because Samsung's version of Android is different from Google's, is different from HTC's, is different from Honeywell's. So there's multiple OSs that need to be supported, and you have to know which one it is in order to support it properly. There are hundreds now of enterprise mobility management platforms, used to be called MDM. There used to be like 4. Now they're coming out of the woodwork, especially in the mid-market, because it is kind of a commodity now. And customers can have, 3 or 4 of these platforms managing different asset classes. You might have, Knox manage our product, managing your Samsung stuff. You might have VMware managing your other Android devices, or your MacBooks and Windows devices. You might have Jamf running your Apple product. All of these are doing very similar things, but they're siloed systems. So that's an inventory that's scattered and not centralized. There are a ton of mobile security softwares that have to be deployed, and their veracity has to be maintained. The posture has to be maintained. There are hundreds of managed services providers, if not thousands globally, and there's over 400 wireless carriers. And if you think about it, every one of these logos that you see here has at least one portal that you have to go into to manage their stuff. In fact, Samsung's got 9 at least. So you can imagine trying to do that life cycle in the context of a more sophisticated, larger company becomes extremely hard, if not impossible, to do in an efficient and automated fashion. At least that used to be the case. Samsung and ServiceNow got together to try and solve this. Next slide, please. And we believe we have. So Zero Touch Mobility for ServiceNow is a scoped application that's downloaded from the ServiceNow App Store. It's embedded with hardware asset management, or HAM, as Eric presented earlier. And it has all of the workflows that you just saw pre-canned. So we've pre-done them up to about 75 or 80% doneness. The 20% is the customization that you can do yourselves or we can help you with to adapt it specifically to your company and your environment. So these workflows, they download from the ServiceNow App Store and they augment your ServiceNow instance. That means that there's no data sovereignty issues or privacy issues or security issues because it's your data. It's in your database. We don't own that data, nor do we see it. We have no external systems besides those that you already operate that we interface with, and we never get to see that data. It's all yours. Even certificate signing is being done from within the ServiceNow platform. So really this augments, it's, think of ServiceNow as our operating system, and we're an application that installs on top of it. So we take years out of the development cycle for you in order to add mobility devices into your ServiceNow instance and manage them in the most efficient way possible. The watchword for what we did was hyperautomation. We wanted to automate these workflows to the point where no human intervention was required. And on a lot of these workflows, we've managed to make that happen. The rest of them, there's as little manual intervention as either legally or humanly possible. So if you look at the integrations that we had to do in order to automate these workflows, because you can do these workflows or you can author these workflows, but in order to automate them, we have to have access to all the external systems and vendors that are involved in them in order to ensure that when somebody hits the button inside of ServiceNow, everything is done through API as opposed to swivel chair and manual effort. So everything on the left-hand side of your screen in the light blue are systems. So enterprise mobility management and unified endpoint management platforms like Knox Suite, Microsoft Intune, Workspace ONE, Jamf, SOTI Mobi Control, and IBM MOS 360. Enrollment platforms. So these are the platforms that force your corporate-owned devices to enroll themselves in an EMM, like Knox Mobile Enrollment, Apple Business Manager, and Google Zero Touch. Because yes, we are OEM agnostic. This works with any device. Analytics platforms. So we've integrated with, for example, Samsung Knox Asset Intelligence. And what that can allow us to do is to download an application through the EMM onto the device and then get diagnostic information brought back on a regular basis. So I can see things like application performance or network performance, or more importantly, battery performance. So about 40% of the reason why mobile devices across every OEM are returned for repair globally is actually battery related. And battery is a really weird thing because it can masquerade as a lot of other problems. It can cause the radio not to work properly, so you can think that, oh, it's a connectivity issue. Or it can cause the processor not to work properly, so you think it's an application issue. So a battery can cause you to go down like 10 or 12 rabbit holes that eventually you get to the point where you're like, I don't know what's the matter with this thing, we just have to replace it. In this situation, I would have seen that the battery was dying before it even became an issue. And this is something that happens as a consumable across all OEMs. So I could then, through the ServiceNow workflow, trigger a replacement or send a replacement battery, depending on the type of device, before it became an issue. So I can start getting preventative and proactive. So in that situation, I can take away on average 40% of a customer's downtime just through the use of technology that's available now, but that hasn't been, as we say, the 3 A's: aggregated, analyzed, and actioned. That's what the ServiceNow platform allows us to do with the Zero Touch Mobility application. So we've also started integrating Gen AI. So we've got a partnership with Watson. We're also working with ServiceNow on their Gen AI platform in order to have generative AI for omni-channel interfacing. So self-service is great, but you have to force somebody to actually go to a portal and use it. So if they can go to a portal or call a help desk, you have a 50-50 shot. But if we could have this embedded in, say, a Microsoft Teams, where somebody could go into a mobility channel and type in the chat, "I've lost my device," and they'll come back and forth and have a natural language conversation with you, all the while triggering things inside of ZTM and ServiceNow, but just doing it in a natural language chat interface. We believe we're going to be able to offset far more to self-service than before because it's far more approachable, especially for younger generations where chat is pretty much the predominant means of communication. It's something that's very comforting almost, and they don't have to call a help desk and talk to a technician. So everything on that side is systems that we've API'd into. On the other side are frameworks for vendor connectivity that we've developed, and we have a number of those vendors integrated already. So you've got your VARs and MSPs, and that's for the ordering of devices or accessories or services like advanced exchange or spare pool management or break fix. We have the carriers, so AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, and we're not focused on expense. So I'm not bringing in the invoice information. I'm just focused on MACD, so move, activate, change, deactivate. I want to be able to say if there's a stolen device, I want to trigger the EMM to wipe that device immediately, get that audit log back into ServiceNow, and then tell Verizon to kill the SIM card immediately. So I take away security issues and everything happens within minutes or seconds as opposed to days or weeks. So integration with the logistics providers, FedEx, USPS, UPS, DHL. The reason for those integrations is we want to have a very Amazon-like experience where if somebody says, "I've got a broken device," we can generate a shipping label and email it to them, make it really easy and take away all that manual effort and make it as easy as a consumer interface, which is what people really want. And we can also track that shipment to get context. I can see where that device is in shipment and therefore trigger certain commands like wiping the device and deactivating the SIM card based on the context that the end user has given up control of that device and handed it to a FedEx driver. These are the logistics guys. We've got a framework for devices as service, which is starting to become very popular, especially in Europe, but it's starting to become big. DAS allows us to do things like leasing or renting of devices where all services, all software is included along with the hardware. And there's a much easier, like unlimited break, unlimited, upgrade, unlimited, take back of device with very little, commitment on the customer side. So DAS is starting to become very important. We have integrations with the TEM providers, so telecom expense management. So where a customer has a legacy TEM provider, we can come in with our ServiceNow hyperautomation solution and play nicely with those vendors so that we can all do our jobs properly. And then buyback, wipe, and recycle or e-cycle providers, integrating with that in order to ensure that, that is a delightful experience as opposed to what it is now, sending the device back, getting the certificate of data destruction or of device destruction, getting the ESG information like carbon offset and water offset, and just really taking advantage of the getting money back for a device that we've paid for in order to help pay for the next version that's going out into the field, but also taking advantage of ESG and other data that can come from those vendors that right now probably isn't being utilized. So I think we have a couple of questions. Michael, did you want us to take them now or later?
We have a couple hand raises in the chat, and encourage folks who might have a question to populate them in the Q&A. But while people are doing that, David, we can keep rolling.
All right, sounds good. So this is the basic structure of the solution. And we're going to be growing it. We've got, a full development team that's going to 24/7 follow the sun development. So our roadmap is really building out, especially on the reverse logistics side, where it's extremely difficult. Also in global sourcing, so allowing our customers to be able to have a central control tower to purchase any mobile device from any vendor globally, but manage it centrally and have that central visibility. And you can see here that the market opportunity for this solution is insane. And I think this is actually low at this point because this was a couple of years ago. The TAM on this is about 1 billion business smartphones. If we include IoT, we include notebook, we include even display that we're looking at adding into this platform, that TAM goes into the multi-billions. So it's absolutely enormous. And the ROI on this is, normally on average around 400%. Even if you've got a customer scrutinizing the ROI and really beating you down, the ROI has never been below 200%. So the ROI on this is insane. And it really does address an issue that customers have. If you're a customer right now watching this, when I was going through that Mobius strip, the order, deploy, enroll, manage while it's out in the field, one of those areas I'm pretty sure gave you heartburn. And one of those areas can justify the ROI. It's not the entire thing. So we can help you with that. We can come up with a business value assessment that is a strategic engagement that's no charge, where we can look at how you're doing things now and then map them to how we could do things better utilizing ServiceNow and ZTM and show you what the benefits would be. So we're happy to engage in that. So with that, I wanted to take you through a demo. Michael, I
Awesome,
don't know
David.
if we wanted.
Thanks for that overview, and I'll stop sharing and let you share your screen when you're ready.
Sounds good. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
So this is the interface of ZTM. It really allows us to have a native experience inside of ServiceNow. So being ServiceNow users, you're probably very familiar with this sort of interface. We've tried to keep it very simple, but as a ServiceNow scoped application, you're able to not even utilize my UI. You could take this UI and slice it and dice it and put it into your existing self-service portals or whatever interface you wanted, or just take my workflows that are automated and insert them into your current workflows where you've got manual steps. Either way, it doesn't break my application, and we're happy to support you in any way possible. So from here, we can handle the enrollment and unenrollment of devices, BYOD device enrollment, so we can take something that's normally quite paper-based and manual and make it very quick and easy, even guiding the end user through the enrollment physically of the device into the EMM and getting them access to corporate data, the reporting of the device lost and stolen, reassignment of the device. So retail customers have a very high turnover rate. So having a device in everybody's hand is great, but if somebody leaves the company, which happens quite often, I need to be able to efficiently hand that to the new employee that's coming in. Before, some of our retail clients were sending the device back to an MSP. So let's say $25 in shipping, and then having the MSP reflash the device, another $20, and then ship it back. So, $70 in shipping and manual effort. We can take that down to being in store with the click of a button and 5.5 minutes. And the long pole in that tent is the device resetting itself. So the level of automation that we're able to get to is extremely high. You can see here from a carrier perspective, I can order SIM cards. I can order devices from the carrier. I can suspend or deactivate that line. I can reactivate the line. I can change service plans and features. All of that can be done through here, but also as part of a workflow. Somebody could go in and hit the button saying, I'm going to be roaming, say what date and time they're going to be roaming, and then we can go into the system and just put the roaming package in place for the right amount of time and take it off automatically at the end. And if they need to extend it, they can go into the portal and do it themselves. No need to call help desk. We've got a nice catalog-like experience where you can go in and you can order, any device, Samsung, Apple, you name it. But it's a nice, I use this a lot, but Amazon-like experience where you go in, you can see everything you want about the device. You can order on behalf of yourself or somebody else. You can also do things like having gates in the workflow that wasn't possible before. So things like, I want to be able to have the end user, when they're ordering the device, sign my telecom usage policy. Every company has that, and normally it's some PDF that you have to print out and sign and then scan and send. And it's something that nobody does, or it takes forever. You have to chase people down. In this situation, we could have it so that it spawns a DocuSign. You go in and sign the agreement. It attaches to the workflow, and it won't allow you to order until you do it. But when you do order, that's then routed to HR, who has that on file from that point forward. These little niggly things that, are pains can really add up from a time and, and just frustration perspective, especially for newer employees who are coming in, younger employees, giving them a form and telling them to sign it and scan it and email it. That's a whole adventure on itself. It should be something that's just automated and part of the workflow. So that's what we do here. Now, I'll give you an example of the inherent automation of the solution into the different systems. So you can see here that I've got my device, and I've actually it's live, so it's a real device. It's sitting here. It's on the T-Mobile network, I believe. It's enrolled in an EMM. It's a standard Samsung device. Like no wires. This is real. Uh, and one thing I ask my customers, one of the greatest questions is, what would you do if your device was lost or stolen right now? And very few customers have a good, response to that. Most of them say, well, I call help desk. I'm like, well, you've lost your phone. Do you know what your help desk number is? It's probably in your phone. And they're like, oh yeah, no, I don't know what my phone number is. I don't know what the procedure is. And even if they did call help desk, as I said before, help desk doesn't have access to any of these systems. So, say I'm an executive with the company, I've lost my phone in an Uber, or I've left it at a restaurant, or I don't know where it is. I've got corporate data on this, even though it is encrypted. It doesn't mean it's perfect and it's safe. And I need to, address this issue quickly. But right now, it would be a ticket to a team, and if it's 1 o'clock in the morning on a Friday, and I figured this out, that might not be fixed until Monday. In which case, the device is going to be out of batteries. I'm never going to be able to get that audit trail that says my data was taken off of it, and I'm going to have data out there for days that's totally ready for anybody to hack. And I've got a live SIM card, which can also be an issue, especially if it's a physical SIM card, because a lot of customers are like, well, I've got an unlimited plan, I don't care. I say, well, but how do you two-factor authenticate into your VPN, or how do you two-factor authenticate into your online banking? Is it a text message? Because a lot of times it is. And in that situation, if it's a physical SIM card, I can remove that, stick it into a new device far more easily than anything else. So we need to address these issues very quickly. So in this situation, I can go into report lost or stolen, or I can call a help desk who has access to this, because we don't have to give them access to the EMM. They've got access to ServiceNow and a workflow inside of ServiceNow that has been given access to the EMM, but for specific commands that have been approved. So there's no way for them to go in and mess up the fleet. It's specific devices with specific functionality. So I go in and say to the person, okay, what device is it? What's the reason it's lost? Explanation or justification. Oops. And I hit submit. So what's going to happen now is that ServiceNow is going to do a bunch of things. So I want to make sure that this device is safe. It's lost, so it's not stolen. So I want to try and recover the asset. So in this situation, I'm going to trigger a lock on this device, and it's going to encrypt. Once it's encrypted, I'm going to be able to then, it'll be about 120 years before it's able, so it's out now. It'll be 120 years on average to hack this thing. At the same time, I've taken a location from the device and sent it back to the end user and sent them a Google Maps link that says, here's where it is. Go try to find it. So at 1 o'clock in the morning, I have reported my device lost. I have encrypted it. I've located it, and I'm going to go try and find it. At the same time, we're monitoring the battery life on this device. And if it drops below, say, 25%, I might send the wipe command anyways, because having that wipe, audit trail that says my data was off the device is worth more to me than the phone. And all of that can happen without people being involved. So with that, I've taken about 8 swivel chairs and a day or two of response time away. Now, if I find it, I can come back in here and I can simply just say unlock, and it'll unlock itself and be available for use. Now, on the other side, if I don't find it, it's wiped, and I've got that audit trail, and I can come back in here and be taken through a workflow to replace that device, and then get that user up and running as quickly as possible. So that's the art of the possible with this. It is a real automation tool. And that's just one example. If it was stolen, we would automatically wipe the device, get that audit trail back inside of ServiceNow, and then be able to say, okay, replace that device. So it's all about getting a device out to the end user as efficiently as possible, and then keeping it out there for as long as possible in the most efficient way, and then dealing with the inevitabilities in the most efficient way to keep that end user as productive as possible, either through preventative measures or through automations that take people out of the equation that can really slow down the response time to issues that are getting more and more mission critical. We've got, is it the same for other mobiles such as Apple? Absolutely. So think of us as the orchestration layer. Whatever your EMM is capable of triggering on the device, we're capable of triggering. So Apple, Google, so Google Pixel, ruggedized devices from Honeywell or Zebra, wearable devices, all of them are the same thing because the solution itself enables me to trigger those commands in through a management system that is managing that device. We're not trying to replace Workspace ONE or Intune. We're just trying to make the triggering of the commands from that system far more efficient and automated.
All right. Fantastic. If for any more information, any other questions, or if you're interested in learning about this further, there are some QR codes on the screen as well. And David is kind enough to provide his contact information here directly as well.
Yeah, and Michael, by the way, we've got 3 breakout sessions at Knowledge coming up. We're going to be talking about and going through the Gen AI integration. We're going to be talking about, how you can prepare your company to go mobile first. And we're also going to be talking about a specific customer of ours that is a large, faith-based support organization that's got 75,000 workers in 108 countries, and their mobile device is their only device. So how we're helping them through ZTM and ServiceNow to manage that entire fleet in that huge expanse, but with 2 people.
Wow. That sounds like you can't miss that one. Fantastic. I'm glad to see you have so many opportunities to see David speak at Knowledge, and there will be plenty of opportunities to see Eric as well. So please get your tickets now, and I hope to see everybody there. With that, we'll wrap it up. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining this call, and thank you to those listening as well. We hope to see you soon, and have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Thank you.